I'm not talking about my hammer, my saws, my nails, all of the other types of equipment that I've got. This is what I think the most important item for a homestead is. Well, hello friends, and welcome back to the cabin. I'm taking the dogs for a little walk. I wanted to talk to you today about just my own personal feeling, but what I consider probably the most important piece of equipment that a homestead or farm, for that matter, could have. These dogs always love to come down here in the evening before we get ready to turn in, and they want to come down here and play around in the water a little bit and then go up there. They take so many siestas during a day, but you know, that's what we do here in the summertime. What are you doing, little piggy? Huh? You look like one of the three little pigs. They just love to come down here, like I said, and play and get wet. Anyway, we'll head on back up to the top and we'll talk about what I think is the most important piece of equipment that a homestead would need. This outdoor kitchen was probably one of the first buildings that we built here on the homestead, besides the old sawmill building, because I needed a place that I could get out of the sun during the daytime and be able to also cook as well. And I'll tell you, we've had a lot of great meals, not only myself, but family members and friends and subscribers that have come by to visit with us. We've had a good time in this outdoor kitchen, and it was well worth it. You know, we just used trees, milled them off on two sides and used them like that, even if they were crooked, because as long as I could see where I was nailing, it really didn't make any difference. And it's very rustic, and also it's very strong. I used primarily pine and cedar that we have abundant in this area here on our property to put this together. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs an outdoor kitchen, but what I am saying, and basically just showing you some of the buildings that we have built here on this homestead, and it was a lot of fun, that if you have a lot of friends and people that you want to entertain, you might think about building some sort of a pavilion like this, but it was something that I needed to get started with here on the homestead to kind of give me a place to go. I think that this is probably the second building that we built here on the homestead, because I needed a place to be able to go to the bathroom. Of course, I didn't mind going out into the woods to use the John, right? But a lot of times we would have friends up here, you know, females, so I decided, you know, I'm going to go ahead and build, because I wasn't living here at the time, I'm going to go ahead and build an outhouse, which at the time we had a different bridge. This was recently redone if you're new to the channel here. But I tell you what, this has been probably one of the most used places here on the homestead, and women don't mind using it because it has no smell. And if you're interested in how I did that, go check out the playlist and you'll see how I was able to accomplish that. But there is no smell in here, and we have used it for 6 years. Now, this chicken house was another building that was really fun to make. Again, I think I made it all out of pine with maybe some cedar bracing right in there, but most of that was made out of pine, and I had my daughter get in on this. It was a lot of fun with some other friends. That is the loudest chicken on YouTube, is it not? Leave me a comment if you believe so. But yeah, this was a really fun build, and it was a way that I could get, you know, and raise some meat chickens and be able to have some eggs. And I'll tell you, with the 5 hens that we've got, I get at least 3 eggs a day, and it's more than what I can eat. I've built so many buildings that I kind of lose track of which came first and which came last and what was in between. But this tower, this is the way that I'm able to bring you guys videos, because when I edit them on the computer, I have to be able to load them on YouTube. And when we got our satellite, we couldn't get up high enough off of the ground to get past the trees, and I didn't want to take out all the trees between me and the northern sky, because that's the direction that it has to point. So I thought, you know what, if I can't get anywhere here on the ground, I'll just go ahead and build a tower. So we built a 20-foot tower, and when you raise it up that high, it's plenty enough to look over the tops of the trees right there. We even built us a handmade ladder out of some cedar poles with, I think I used the pine for the rungs. And that the structure is actually made out of cedar with a pine platform up top. That was a really fun build, and I think most of the videos did well on that because that's quite unusual. This is another little build right here that was really fun. We wanted to be able to have a way that we could smoke meat. Now I have a fire pit down there at the bottom of the bank. You build a fire in it, the smoke travels up, comes up into the building. I got a little vent right there on the side that represents a chimney, but I can open that up and kind of control the amount of smoke or heat that actually gets in there. Tell you what, folks, the bacon and the ham and all the different cuts that we got off of Porky when we harvested her, and we've still got, I think, a few packages of sausage left, and then we'll be done with that. But Jennifer had some hid in her freezer and I didn't know it. But yeah, this is a nice way to be able to smoke your meat and then put it up if you like your meat to taste that way. Well, friends, the cabin here behind me was built for about $20,000. The only money that I actually have in it is the metal roof, the wiring, the insulation, the final flooring that I put down, some paneling that's on the bottom, the sheetrock, and maybe a few other items, but I tried to keep everything to a minimum. Most of the material just came off of the homestead right here, but I didn't want to spend too much money building a place to stay, and being able to have the resources that we've got here available allowed me to be able to do that. So friends, if you're new to this channel, we've got quite a series on this timber frame workshop right here, because it's actually taken me 3 years to get to this point. We built it in 3 sections. The first section was right here where the tractor is housed, and after that I pulled off to build a carport that I'll show you. But I got to feeling guilty that I had a place for the tractor and no place for the truck. But this was done in 3 stages. I just got finished putting the siding on and we're starting on the flooring. But I think that this is going to really be a nice place once it's fixed, because we've got the tractor down here, the sawmill. I'll have all of my tools down here. So anything that needs to be made for the homestead, this, I'm hoping, is where it will happen. Now, I guess as most of you all know, that this section right here was built second. There's also some beams up top to put in a second floor, because I've really lacked space here on the homestead to be able to pack away and put things away. So I decided to go ahead and make an upstairs. I'll have a small narrow staircase that goes up, but it'll just give me a place that I can put boxes and things like that, because I didn't put an attic in the cabin. So we'll kind of have one out here in the workshop. You can see in there where the post is beside the window, and then running horizontally across that are some 6 by 10 beams that will hold the second floor up. Then we were finally able, like I said, to get the siding on this 3rd section that we built. And I'll tell you, we also built the beam, which is 24 feet long, that goes across the front right there by sandwiching in some 2x6s that were bought from the big box store, with some plywood in between. I think we added 28 pieces of all thread going through, bolted that all together through there, and that is holding that roof up. And that was quite a feat of engineering for us, because we'd never done anything like that before. And it was also something of trying to get that thing lifted up and put in there with the tractor. So like I said, this has kind of been an interesting series. You might want to go check that out. If you're new here, or if you haven't seen them in a while, go check it out. So this carport was an afterthought after we started the workshop down there, because I got to feeling guilty that I had a place to park my tractor and no place to park my truck. So I went and grabbed a few pine poles. I think they're all pine. And then the main beams up there are pine as well, even though they're crooked like this. I just milled them off on two sides. Then the support beams up there for the roof that run this way, they're pine. I put 3 of them together, 2x6s. Yeah, I mean, we've got a really nice carport, again, from the resources that we have here on the homestead. Well, this is another fun little build that we undertook, putting together our power system here for the homestead. I lived up here for, what, 2 years? Almost 3 years, using batteries that I would actually haul to my sister's house about every 3 days, charge them up, bring them back over here, and use them for the next 24 hours. I did that every day, just part of living up here, you know, that's what I did. But this was a really fun build too, and you know, it's quite unique because I wanted it to kind of favor one of the old general store fronts, and I think that we were able to accomplish that. It would probably look more like one if it was larger, but I just needed an area, which on the inside there it's 6 by 8. I needed an area large enough to house all of the electronic equipment that is going to handle the power coming from these. So since these are part of the same system, we had to build them at the same time, which I've got about $1,500 in all of the equipment here to be able to build those, but it was going to cost me more money to be able to purchase, you know, something metal. But we got the post in the ground about 30 inches, and I'll tell you, we've had some 50 and 60 mile an hour winds here with several storms that have passed through this area, and they didn't even flinch. So we think that we've got them in the ground really good. They seem to be very strong, and I haven't even changed the angle, and this is almost, you know, right at summertime, right? And it's just cranking up the amps every day, charging me up, and I'm ready to go in the evening with the usages that I have so far around here. I do need to get a leg down here to the workshop, but I'll tell you what, friends, this system right here is doing the job for the homestead. So friends, I said all that to say this. This brings me to the point where this is what I think the most important item for a homestead is, and that is to be able to own a sawmill. Now, I have a tractor that I use all of the time for the logging that we do around here. I even had another sawmill that we started with, much smaller, and probably what, 1/5 the price that we paid for this one right here. But it built almost everything up here, probably 90% of it, because we've only had this for a year. But I think that a sawmill is probably the most important item that a farm or a homestead should have, because of the things that you can do with it. And that's why it took me so long to get to this point, to show you the things that I was able to do. I'm not talking about my hammer, my saws, my nails, all of the other types of equipment that I've got. This is probably, like I said, the most important, because this allowed me to fashion the wood. As long as I had a way to cut a tree down, all right, and be able to fashion the wood. I could have used my truck. I could have used a much smaller vehicle, like a lot of folks use ATVs. You know, they have log haulers that you can actually hook up to an ATV and pull a big log out of the woods with it. But to be able to fashion, like I said, that material and build the structures like we have here. Now, I don't know what the value of all of these buildings put together, but I would say this is a timber frame workshop right here. You can't buy these anywhere. They have to be specially made, and that's basically specially put together, because people don't build like this anymore. But you've got to have big material to be able to do this. So being able, like I said, to fashion that material allowed me to be able to pretty much build anything that I want to up here. They have starter sawmills that are around, I think, $3,000, Wood Miser does, like the one that we used to have. It was hand push it. I mean, everything was manual on that. But like I said, again, it built most everything here. So could I do without my tractor? Yeah, I probably could, because I do have an ATV. If I didn't have either one, the ATV would be cheaper to get to start with, right? And it doesn't matter what type of tractor that you have, you know, anything that you could pull a log with, because you can always get it up on the sawmill manually. You don't have to lift it up like I do with a grapple and set it down here. That's nice to have. But there's other ways of doing things. So if I had it to do all over again, this is probably one of the things that I would purchase first, because, you know, we couldn't have built any of these buildings up here without it. Unless, you know, we didn't have a pocket full of money where we could run to the store and get it, because that's the only other way that you can do it, right? And there's a lot of buildings up here. There's a lot of material. As fast as these pines and these cedars, not the cedars, but the poplar, as fast as they grow, seems like they grow faster than I can cut them, because they're some of the fastest growing trees around here. But yeah, this has saved us not only a tremendous amount of money, but like I say, it's been given us the ability to be able to build everything that we've got up here. And this is probably what I consider the most important piece of equipment that a farm or a homestead could have. Well friends, we've done quite a bit up here, and we wanted to share with you all what we thought was the most important tool that we could have had living here on the homestead or a farm. You know, we got 30 acres here, and there's a bottom down there we could farm if we were farmers. But it was a really important decision to make, but probably the best decision, because we looked at the cost of what it was going to be versus what it would cost us to build the buildings, and it only made sense, right? Of course, there's a lot of work involved in it, and we're using pretty much raw material. But if you don't mind living like we do here, or if you're interested in building things like this, then I would consider going and checking out the beginner sawmills, because they have something that will fit everyone's need. Thanks so much for stopping by. We certainly appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you back up here again next time.